All right, so today we're going to go over the 5 questions you had to answer for the last class on To My Old Master. So I have the 5 questions in front of us, and what I'm going to try to do is go through how you should have answered or a sample answer for each of these questions. So I want to try to identify, if you were really struggling on how to find some of these answers, how can we find those answers, and how should your answers have been constructed? Now, if we look at the first one, infer, what details about his current situation does Anderson include in paragraph 2? Why does he include this information? So in order to answer this question, and first I want to point out, it says infer, which means, to make an inference or an educated guess. So we know that what we're saying is our best educated guess, which means our evidence here is most important, right? Because we have to defend what we're saying. So what details about his current situation does Anderson include in paragraph 2? So let's go ahead, we'll go to paragraph 2. So what details? I want to know particularly what the good chance is your purpose to give me. I am doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month. Okay, so this is one. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing. I have a comfortable home for Mandy, the folks call her Mrs. Anderson, and the children, Millie Jane, Grundy, go to school and are learning well. The teacher says Grundy has the head of a preacher. They go to Sunday school, and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated, which is another important detail. Sometimes we overhear others saying them colored people were slaves down in Tennessee. The children feel hurt when they hear the remarks, but I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many darkies would have been proud as I used to be to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will give me, I will better be able to decide whether it would be my advantage to move back again. So looking at this paragraph, if we go back to our questions, what details do we know about the current about his situation? Well, first of all, we're told that he earns $25 a week. So Anderson states that he earns, not a week, a month. And we can quote this, $25 a month. And that all the children are doing well. Now, this is your claim and your evidence because you're saying you're answering directly the question in this case. This is what he says because that's what the question's asking you. You're not really arguing anything. You're saying what's there. He says the children are doing well and going to church. We can add that. Going to church. He also says that the family is, and you can quote this, kindly treated. Now, when you are answering these questions, it's important to mix it up a little bit. Notice I did not take an entire sentence from that passage. I more or less put it in my own words. I took the important phrases and I quoted those, so $25 a month and kindly treated, and I incorporated them into what I was saying. And that's fine. That's what you should be doing. Not every question involves you quoting an entire line or should involve you quoting an entire line from a passage. It's okay to give a shorthand explanation. Now, to answer the second part of this question and to get to our warrant, why does he include this information? Well, he includes this information, so he includes these details to show that his life has improved since he got away from the colonel. you know the life of a slave was not a good life. He makes little hints here and there that he was poorly treated. For example, in paragraph 1, he even talks about how, if we go back up there, although you shot at me twice before I left. He was shot at by this guy. This guy did not treat him well. So in saying, the colonel obviously wants him to come back, but he's saying, hey, I earn $25 a month. I don't work for free anymore. My children are going to school. They go to church. My family's really kindly treated. They call her, they call my wife Mrs., which is a really big thing. He's just trying to show that my life is a lot better. Right? So at the bare minimum, this is an acceptable answer for number 1. Any variant of this is acceptable. So let's go to number 2. What is ironic about the colonel's willingness to grant Anderson his freedom, and how does Anderson respond? Now, we can make a claim without even going back to the text. What is ironic about the colonel giving Anderson his freedom? If you read this text, you know Anderson's free. He's completely free. So it's ironic for the colonel to try and grant freedom to someone who is already free. Okay? So Anderson is living, if you wanted to be extra, Anderson is living in Ohio, which is a free state. All right, so you can go ahead and add that. There are some more details that you can add, but that would be a pretty good claim. Now, what then, or how does Anderson respond? So if we go back to our text, he says, as to my freedom, the top of paragraph 3, as to my freedom, which you say I can have, there is nothing to be gained on that score, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. So Anderson responds by saying, I got my free papers in 1864. So if we go back to our answer, so Anderson responds by saying that he got his free papers in 1864. And to add a warrant to this, that response, what about that response? Okay, he got his free papers. Is he mad about that? Is he rubbing it in the person's face? Or is he just saying, like, here are the facts? And if you read through this entire letter, the overall tone is, here's the case. This is where we stand. Let's look at this from a logical perspective. So he responds by saying that he got his free papers in 1864. His response to the colonel's willingness to grant him his freedom is really, I would use the word nonchalant, but to put that a different way is indifferent. It's really indifferent, because he already has the thing that's being offered. All right, let's move on. Number 3, analyze. One way writers convey tone is through diction or word choice. In paragraph 3, what does Anderson mean when he asks for what we are in justice entitled to? Why did he choose these words to express this idea? Now, the first thing you should do when you're answering this question is, if there's a quote in that question, you should go to where that quote is. So let's go to paragraph 3. Okay. I'm just trying to find this. Give me 1 second. Okay, so Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us justly and kindly. We have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages from the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. Notice this word justice. He goes through to explain, I served you faithfully, blah, blah, blah. This tooth, Mandy. And the balance will show that we are in justice entitled to this amount of money. So please send the money to blah, blah, blah. Okay, so he's saying that we are in justice entitled to. We know that when you're serving justice, you're trying to wrong a right. So he carefully chooses this word justice, which is repeated twice, or at least, if not more, because I read it in the beginning as well. And entitled, this word entitled. If a person is entitled to something, that means it is their right to have that thing. So he's saying we are entitled to this money, to show that you understand where we're coming from. We are, we think we're entitled to this money. Go ahead and send it in advance and we'll trust you. Okay, so let's go back to our question. So one way writers convey tones through diction. In paragraph 3, what does Anderson mean when he asks for the justice he's entitled to? So when Anderson mentions the justice he's entitled to, he is talking about the money he, and I'm going to put in parentheses, and his wife, should have been paid for all their years of service to the colonel. All right, so that answers this first part. Why did he choose these words to express that idea? So we've answered the first part in here. Now we're kind of going to have a second claim, right? So why does he choose those words? Well, so Anderson chooses those words in order to show how fair-minded he is. So what do we mean by, fair-minded? Well, he's looking at this from a logical perspective. He was like, hey, I make, and we can go back to the text and look at this. I make $25 to make us forget old scores. I served you faithfully for 32 years and Mandy for 20 years. At $25 a month for me, which is what he currently makes, and $2 a month for Mandy, our earnings would amount to $11,680. And he's saying, but hey, listen, you gave us accommodation and you clothed us and you fed us for all these years. And I saw the doctor 3 times and Mandy had a tooth pulled. So go ahead and take those charges out. So that's what our money should be. You take out the bills, all right? And then, we'll call it even, right? You send us that money after the difference or whatever, and we're fine. So Anderson chooses these words in order to show how fair-minded he is. Anderson is looking at the situation from a logical perspective. Now I'm going to go ahead. We're running out of time for this video, so I'm going to stop it there, and I'll see you in part 2.